días a todos.
Hello, everyone. As Barbara was saying, we're going to speak about something when my colleagues join me on the stage, something that we're all concerned with, which is politics. Yesterday, we were launching one of the projects here at Sondersland, and we were talking about how everything is changing in the last few months and years regarding that acceleration we're seeing all over the world with the appearance of new parties and movements, polarization, radicality that we also have here in many spheres, and how that is aided by that economic, social, climate, and health crisis. So I have the fortune today of having very different four young people here, as the fun part about it, that want to share with us some thoughts that I'm sure many of us have when we talk about something so important, so disconnected sometimes from us, which is politics in our country. I'll begin with Javier Guardiola, to my right, Deputy at the Madrid Assembly for the Socialist Party. Welcome and good day. Thank you. I'll continue with Elisa, also Deputy at the Assembly of Madrid for the Popular Party. Thank you. Hi. To my left, I have got Elsa, President and General Director of Talent for the Future. Good day and welcome. And I'll finish with Enrique López, a lawyer and collaborator at Talento para el Futuro, Talent for the Future. Thank you. So it's great to talk about this topic. Sometimes we talk about politics amongst young people and we end up in a drama or in absurd discussions instead of looking at what to do to forge ahead, which is a target. And I do have a question, especially with some information given to us by Talent for the Future. From INJUVE, the National Institute for Youth in Spain, they have already researched that there is a 6.6% less of participation in the politics of the country regarding older people. So people are unhappy with what's happening. So in your case, you are politicians. So why do you think there's a disconnect and that unrest, that unhappiness with politics? Well, I think we have an extraordinary case in the Community of Madrid. For the first time, we had a participation of 76% in the latest elections. 39% was votes from young people. So we had a massive participation in the last elections with President Ayuso. So what she has done, which is different to the rest, was to talk the talk. If you're coherent and speak the same language, then the people who are listening to you, they'll vote for you. At the Youth Institute, many people were saying that politicians do not represent them. And young politicians have an important role to communicate through social media and to simplify the messages and to take the policies we're carrying out to young people. I'm 27 years old. I'm the youngest deputy at the Assembly. I cannot speak in the same way than a person who is 50 years of age. Because if I did, people would be astonished. So we need to speak the same language. I think that's a key element. I don't know what Javier thinks. Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me and for being here at this time. It was hard to be here on a Saturday, and I'd like to thank the organizers. They usually say that young people are not doing anything, and that in this COVID crisis, we have seen how people were looking at us, saying that we only went partying and damaging our elders. And in the Community of Madrid, we just see young people in events, organizing things, and complaining about things they want to change. So there is a certain distancing, both materially, from the needs we have, and also culturally, about the ways in which we like things. So we need to communicate differently and talk about different topics and express that differently. And then we have that material difference. If most people can not find a job, when they do, most of them have a temporary job. when they cannot really be fulfilled. And then if you cannot leave your parents' home, or you cannot do a leisure activity because they're expensive, or travel the way you like, if you cannot live your life, eventually you say, so what politics are saying, is that representing me? Are they talking about my topics, my life? So we need to have young representatives working on that. Because even though we are from different parties, we do share a generational target, and we need to be here to do things differently. Because otherwise, it's still the same story. So these panels are very interesting to work on that. I'm happy to see you in agreement, and that's important. Sometimes from the outside, when we turn on TV, we see this agreement. We agree more than it seems. Well, I think the media are to blame, partly. Well, thank you, but they show more the differences than the similarities, and we worked more on similarities. Will be unstoppable, and we'll deal with that later. We've talked about what joins us, but let's look at that polarization later. So, Elisa. Elsa, sorry. So we've talked about representatives who are at the Madrid Assembly, people who are professional politicians. So from your personal and professional perspective in Council for the Future, why do you think we have that disconnect between young people and politics? I think it's a disconnect due to different factors, but one of them is that the challenges we see are so important and the actions are so few. For example, climate emergency and the unemployment problem in Spain, as Javier was saying earlier. The problem is that people and young people get tired of voting. Maybe they were not born with the democratic spirit of our parents. We take it for granted, and you vote for politicians, whoever they are, or to their challenges, and the climate emergency are so big that you just say, oh, why should I keep voting these people if they're going to keep doing the same? Because we know that requires a systemic change, and it's quite difficult. So on the one hand, we have that systemic change need, and we think it cannot be solved with voting. That's why people protest, get out on the streets, show their unhappiness. And then we have the part of lack of tools. People say, well, I like politics, but maybe I do not want to be a political party member, or I do not find a party that represents me, or if they do, I don't want to follow that route. And maybe tools are missing because young people do not know about them. Many people coming to Talento, para el Futuro organization say, well, I love this initiative, I want to be in politics, but I don't know how. And they're missing that connection and building bridges with institutions, political parties from a much more neutral perspective, saying, okay, we're young people, we're diverse, but we have challenges that we share. So that disconnect is also due to the lack of tools and to knowing how to reach them. Well, you've spoken about tools, about the ability to participate. That might be different. And every 4 years we vote. That does seem very last century-like. And we've talked about direct communication. So, Enrique, what would you add to this disconnect or this unrest?
So as Elsa has said, it's a multifactorial analysis, and we could spend the whole morning speaking about this disconnection between young people and politics. But I think that resuming what my colleagues have just said, is that they're not speaking about the problems that young people have. I mean, I do not speak, politicians speak about youth unemployment rate, where we are champions in Europe, or the access, the house access, and they're speaking about things that divide ourselves, fascism, communism, the Spanish Civil War, but I'm not hearing them speak about how I make my living, etc. So these are very difficult problems, I would say, but they require really extreme solutions. They need us to work. And I'm not seeing politicians moving to solve all this. And in the end, this creates this disconnection towards politics. And because you see politics as something useless to solve your problems. It's like, why am I going to vote? Because they're not going to solve my problem. I think that this is something that should be taken into account in this analysis to see why young people are voting less. I think that something that's you've mentioned something that is very important, and this is time and energy that we waste in speaking about what has happened. So it's good to learn from the past, not to make the same mistakes, because well, we're human beings. But it's true that in our country we are holding discussions that are totally useless, that do not contribute to the present or to the future that we want to build as a country. So how do you think that people can participate in a model that it is increasingly digital, increasingly connected? We have no barriers to reach you, to reach people that are making these decisions. So how do you think that things will change the way in which people can participate in politics and in the way of our living? I think that there are barriers. Technology brings us closer, but at information levels, for example, the capacity that you have in your family, I mean, that these barriers that are socially that are social and economic, so to speak, have to do with time. For example, if you are starting in the morning, if you are trying to study during the evening, try to learn a language during the night, you don't have time to participate in politics. So time is key. And regarding the possibilities that we have to change this, well, the change is already happening. We are seeing international movements that are connecting through social media and that are sending a message that, I mean, they are even changing the discussion to the governments all over the place. I think that the example that we can see now is a Friday for Future, for example, that suddenly someone sat down in front of a parliament and they repeated all over the world. So these moves that eventually are connecting us make us change, and they make us progress as society. And beyond the national barriers, we have common challenges as a planet. And that's important too. I mean, we need to see beyond what we have here to solve our local stuff, but without forgetting the global sphere. Yeah, we live in a globalized world. Totally agree with Javier, but there's something key, and it is that we need to be on the street. Any politician has to be on the street, seeing what's going on. If there are problems to get a house, you have to work on it. There are many plans, but the point is that they do not exist because we have the renting plan, my first home plan. We are working to reduce taxes. Why? Because when you want to be an entrepreneur, because this is the theory that is trying to be moved from Sondersland, you find many barriers. And to be an entrepreneur is another way, but they have to pave that way sometimes. So where must be the politician they have to be on the street. We're getting many ideas, many movements, etc. But to participate in politics doesn't only require you to be in a political party. Maybe you are sending a tweet to the young politician that represents you the most to receive. Maybe they can welcome you at their office, or maybe they go and see you. So I write to all the startups or the associations that I see, and it's like, hey, I want to listen to you because that's my job. So you can participate in many ways. Coming all together, it's another way. But we have to think of, I mean, we have to fight for freedom, of course. And if you are on the street, you can talk to any of us. Yeah, and to be on social media, as you've said, because it's true that there are barriers that we need to be able to overcome among all ourselves. And well, social media eventually democratize the connection and allow you to reach any type of people. Something that we're living with the increase of fake news, that over information, etc., this lack of critical thinking and information, etc., takes us to a digital world where everything's valid, where everything's allowed, and where we suddenly see how they destroy people overnight, and there's a lack of brave and boldness when really identifying yourself. So what's the role that social media are playing? I mean, do you think that we should take a step forward and to realize that not everything is valid? In my case, the culture of cancellation, I think that people need to pick what they consume and who they follow. And they can think differently. We don't have to think all the same. Maybe there are people that are more polarized, but if you relate to that, that's great. Who am I as a politician to tell them what they have to think? What I have in front of me are people that have their own thinking. I mean, who needs to see, we're going to see this and we are not going to see that? Who has a moral authority? It's like when you say A, do I have to say A? Why do we have to punch him? I mean, that's unfair. And what we need to speak, what we need to do is to be respectful. We shouldn't insult, but we should respect any different opinion because we don't have to be all the same. I mean, we don't have to be like clones, like little clones that say all the same. And that's the sad thing. In this society, in this world, the point is that people think differently and vote differently all around the globe. So that has to be respected. The freedom of expression, of course, and always respectful. Do you agree? Javier? I think that as a society, we should assume different speeches. Are we free? Do you have the capability of reaching the whole knowledge and to give an answer with all the different answers? It's like, well, if we lie, is it freedom? If we publish a piece of fake news, is that freedom? So isn't that harmful for our democracy? We need to be aware of the fact that we live in a society where we are sharing some values and principles. And of course, here in a democracy, you have the possibility of thinking, you have the capacity to think, to decide, but it's true that there are people that have the capacity to lie and to have an impact through lies on different aspects, and that's harmful because it's harmful for our democracy, for our constitution, and for our human rights. So it's true that in our democracy, I mean, not to cancel it, I would say, by the way, the cancellation culture, well, this has existed for many years, and this was done by some people, and this has existed for many centuries. But when we need to think of is to say specific things. Is that positive for freedom, or is it reducing other people's freedom? Because here it's a discussion that as a society we're not facing. And in my case, I'm concerned about how we can be assuming it. So to make such a statement in such a complex discussion is difficult, I think. So as you see, we have many things to say in such a discussion, and there's a question that linked to what they've just said. Well, for example, in your case, Elsa, I don't know how you see this. So are we free in Spain? Are young people free in Spain? Wow, what a question. Yep, I know that. I think that we are totally free in Spain. I'd like to know how we interpret freedom, social media, for example, and maybe we can decide that there are international rates that say that Spain is a good place to live. Other things that we have challenges. We are in one of the best societies in the world, but we see problems like gender gap. And well, for young people, this could be negative for their freedom, all the hate crimes. The point is that we live very well, but as we live that well, we can have a look at these problems that many are not taking into account in other countries because they have other needs, that is to make their living. So when we have a social economic level, we can speak about these things that go beyond this simple politics, and we can speak about all these things that are not easy to tackle, of course. But speaking about social media, I think that they exist, of course. We are not forbidding any voice to be heard, and we have the cancellation problem. That's true. I think that this is more serious in other countries, like in the US, for example. But the social media, for example, are immediate, and the problem is that
llenan de mentiras sin saberlo, ¿no?
that immediacy, and there are circles of people that are full of lies without knowing them, no matter what ideology they're following. So they are, I mean, it's like if you're not there, it's like if you weren't there. So that's the point. I think that in some cases they are inhibiting their freedom without knowing it, because they are getting into a vicious circle. And there's no way to know it, I would say. Well, regarding polarization, I think that's one of the big terrible things in our country, to give an opinion about absolutely everything. So when the Olympics were here, we were all experts. What we were seeing with the wars, etc., we were experts there too, and we give an opinion about everything. And of course, we need to have that freedom, but we need to be aware of what we're saying, because that's building our image, and that's mirroring some kind of ideas. So maybe you are seeing this from your own sector. Where do we have that respect in order to connect to the world as young people? Because I think it's difficult to manage. Well, I think it's difficult because that's one of the main challenges of the criminalists now. Where do we put that limit of the freedom of expression? Well, after everything you've said, I'm more pessimistic. I think that the freedom of expression is under threat in Spain. I think that things like a cancellation culture, I mean, our generation is getting used to cut the freedom of expression, saying that some discussions shouldn't happen because we have already overcome that, and they just give wings to extremist positions. I don't know if we are the best democracy in the world, but I consider that we are a democracy that has some years of experience, and I think that we can discuss, and we should discuss about everything. Javier was speaking about the respect to constitutional values. I mean, our constitutional system, for example, the Constitutional Court has said that we are not in the militant democracy. You can disagree on the values that we all have, but that's not hinders us from having some discussions. For example, why shouldn't we kill? I mean, why should we speak about killing as a possibility of the person? So we need to have that discussion why we have overcome that discussion, so to speak. So, but to speak what's in the public discussion and what's not in the public discussion in a random way, what's a hate crime and what's not, what can you speak about in this democracy? Well, I think that's a little bit willful, I would say, and some arbitrary, and it leads us to some totalitarianism, I would say. I think that our generation has the mission of not making these mistakes. You've mentioned something critical. Means, well, of course, in Spain, have more rights and more capabilities compared to other areas in the world. There's a lot to do, but luckily, we have been born in a country with many opportunities. So there's something that is key to me, and that's the foundation of everything. And this is values. Sometimes we try, and well, that we are having this constant discussion. Are we living better than our parents? Will we be able to live better than our grandparents? The social promise, it's like if you study, if you learn languages, everything will work. And we are 24, 25 years old. We have our degree. We go to the labor market, and we see that the situation it's not that good. So, from your point of view, what can young people do so that this promise that we have been grown with really makes no sense right now? So how can we transform this? And something very important, what new values, if we need to evolve them, you think that are necessary to build this new stage that has to be built? So Javier, what do you think? I think that there's something key, and no matter whether we live better or worse, I think that what makes us different is the capability that other generations have had to overcome challenges they had. And I think that that's the generational responsibility we have. So this is why I would like to congratulate all the colleagues that are are here or that are representing a party or an entity, because it's key that we all participate in something, in the party that we are represented by, in the neighborhood association. But we need to convey a generational message of the challenges that we have to overcome, because these are the challenges by our neighbors, by our brothers and sisters. I would say that that's key. What makes us different from other generations is that they have get involved. It's like we want to build the country, the city, the world for tomorrow. We want to build it today, because if we do not decide what we want to do today, when it comes tomorrow, they will have decided by us. And I think that it's very important that everybody from his own point of view to see the world, but with that generational goal that we should have. There are challenges that are common, and I think that it is there where we need to try it as other generations. And I think that here lays a challenge, I would say. Such a different world to the world that our parents and grandparents have. Maybe it's a little bit upside down. Like, well, we used to. No, we didn't used to. I mean, the world is not the same. You can't always want the same when things are changing around us. I would like to convey a more optimistic message, because it seems that we are speaking about how bad things will be. If you are here today, it's because you want to foster your talent, and you have come here with an idea, maybe with whatever we have, we really wanted to be an entrepreneur, to get out of the canon and to say, well, maybe I don't want to run for a public position, maybe I want to be an entrepreneur, maybe I want to have something different. So the world belongs to who works every day and who really is excited when he or she wakes up. And this is what we have to convey to everybody that's here and to people that are online. I won't tell you that this is easy. Life has never been easy. Was our parents' life easier? Was our grandparents' life easier? Not at all. My grandparents lived a civil war. Is that easy? No, not at all. Do you have challenges? Of course. You have the strength to overcome them? Of course. Who says no? If they say no, you slap them. And it's like, hey, of course I can. You have said Trivu, and you're here, right? So we all can do exactly the same. That's the message that I want to convey. Who's preventing you from doing that? Of course we can do that. Of course we can access a job. Of course. I mean, isn't it difficult to access a house? Of course. Do you know that that it was easy for them to pay 15 or 20 million pesetas for a house? Of course, it's an effort. It's like I'm going to look for the opportunity, because we have an opportunity in everything. So because when we are not thinking about during the pandemic, Glovo slated, because they were looking for the opportunity, and it's to look beyond. Do not hit yourself against the wall. It's like, no problem. Maybe until you're 30, you don't have your house. That's fine. There are many public plans to access a house. Can guarantee you. There are many plans in the region of Madrid to be an entrepreneur. I encourage you to do it. And if not, you can write to me, and I'll sit down with each one of you to make your dreams come true. But let's stop crying. Of course we have differences. Of course we can make it. Of course I can have a startup. Of course I can be a hairdresser and to succeed. So Spain is a country of opportunities. I would invite many people that are crying to go out of Spain and to see what we have outside. Maybe you'd be a little bit scared. Sorry.
Desde luego, yo creo que sin algo estamos de acuerdo los cuatro, que serán muchas cosas.
So if we agree on something, I think that Spain is a country of opportunities, and Madrid is a region of opportunities. There's a lot of work to do, but it depends on us. Waiting for others to do it makes no sense. The point is what we can do, assuming our own responsibility and with great pride and commitment. So, of course, we could spend the whole morning here and Sunday, and that's not the idea. And I would like to end up with a message. I agree with you on the fact that crying and to being aware of the problems, etc. But when you know what the problem is, you know what's going on. Because, well, if not 10 years later, we would be speaking about the same. So Enrique, Elsa, looking to the camera for everybody that follows us from home, we would like to have a message of optimism, as our colleague was saying. In the end, maybe sometimes we need to try it. Yeah, of course, it's helpful. Yeah. An optimism message. The optimism message that it was sent is that there are many more movements than what they think. And the most important thing is to start, as Elisa was saying, to start with a small action that you can control, but don't be there crying. The important thing is that you should know that you're not alone. Not at all. There are many organizations, many movements that you can join. And the important thing is to keep it up, because if you don't keep it up, you will have what you called learned helplessness. So you won't be able to create that impact. So keep it up, because there are many people that would you think fighting against this, and the more we are, the better.
Enrique.
Thank you very much.
Bueno, yo para terminar simplemente me sumo a todos
So
los
just
mensajes de
to
optimismo. Creo
wrap
que
up,
España es
I
un
would
país
like
fantástico y creo que lo que mejor tiene es su gente y
send that
la sociedad civil que lleva
that message of
siendo
optimism.
motor de
I
cambios
think that
desde hace un
the civil
montón,
society has been that
desde la
change engine
transición, que nos
since
dimos-
the
tuvimos
democratic
un pacto
transition.
entre todos de
There
convivencia
was an
y
agreement
que a partir de ahí sentamos
to
las
live all
bases
together since then,
para
and
crecer todos unidos.
we set
Así
the
que creo
foundations
que
to
nada
grow
en la
all
vida
together. I think
es
that
regalado y quien te lo diga
we are
miente.
not,
Creo que hay que
I
pelear
mean,
cada
nobody
momento
gives
por las
things away.
reivindicaciones.
And
Ahora
I
en un
think that
mundo
we need to
globalizado,
fight for
las
our
reivindicaciones
reivindications in a
que podemos hacer los
globalized
jóvenes
world.
españoles
The things that
no son
young
tan
people
distintas a las que tienen
could
los jóvenes
have
franceses
are
o los
not that
jóvenes daneses.
different
Y
compared
por
to
lo tanto,
the people from
en ese
Denmark
sentido,
or
la unión
France.
hace la
So in
fuerza en un
that
mundo
sense,
globalizado. Y sí
if we
creo
are
que
together,
cuando nos
we
surgen
will be
argumentos
stronger in a
racionales
globalized world.
de peso,
I think that we based ourselves on good founded arguments. And if we build from reason instead of from emotion, I think that we accomplish whatever we want, and we can
de esencia quijotesca española quiere, que es cambiar el mundo y mejorar la sociedad.
If anybody has some kind of this Quixote essence, everybody thinks that they can change the world. A generation has to change the world, and they have to do it. And they can't just see how things happen. We can do that, of course. We can't forget that everything we have is the inheritance of what our parents have been doing and our grandparents have been doing. So we see that how these things are at stake sometimes. So, Javier, the optimism that we need. What's your message? Okay, so thank you very much. I hope that you have some takeaways. This generational responsibility deals with accomplishing the challenges that we have ahead of us. Of course, according to your dreams and as society too. I mean, we have things to think of to build that we were saying about our parents and grandparents. So in this sense, those efforts that we are doing in order to make these dreams come true, we shouldn't forget that sometimes we, in the nights we cry or we are concerned and think that we should be aware of this. Life is not only working, and it's important to build a society so that with your effort, with your boldness, with your work every single day, we should have a society where everybody can live in a good way and as a society too, of course. And I hope that you've liked everything that we've been saying. So just a reflection to wrap up. When you listen to this live and you see such different people that, as we were saying, from some parties that are always against each other, and the press makes us think so, and we come here, we see that we have many more things in common. This really cheers me up. We have the energy and the capacity, especially the excitement to do it, because Enrique, as you were saying, the best thing that this country has, but especially what Spain has, is its people. So thank you very much to you all. Keep it up, and nobody stops us. Thank you.